Hello and welcome to CLEA'S World. I am Clea, and today I would like to share with you more of the information I've received from the 25th dimension during my last QHHT Hypnosis session. I'll be reading from a transcript of the session, and when I refer to Lorrayne, I'm speaking of my practitioner who's asking me questions I've prepared for the session, and when I refer to me, I'm speaking of myself under hypnosis, which means the answers are coming from the 25th. Before I move forward, I'd like to thank you as always for subscribing, liking, and commenting on this video. I really appreciate it. I love to see your names pop up under my videos, so that's very cool. All right, I'm going to start reading here, and I just wanted to premise this by saying this coming question, by saying that it's awesome. The answer that the 25th gave is awesome, and I am so grateful to Elena actually for having asked this question. She really gave us an opportunity to delve into something that we don't really normally talk about. All right, so here it is, Lorrayne. Okay, this is a question from Elena. She would like to know how to lighten up while waiting for the takedown. And the 25th was laughing here. Lorrayne's comment, and many of us have been, let's just say, less than our cheerful selves. And that is an understatement. Me. And the 25th was still laughing. Yeah, so we love Elena. She's a shining light. She's doing all she can to stay grounded and to remain upbeat despite all the emotional triggers that are happening in her life. And not only she's advising, the rest of us, like she was advising you and Clea on perhaps not letting yourselves get too caught up. And it's completely and perfectly fine. It's not only acceptable, but it's the way that she wants to do this work. She's doing just as much work as everybody else. And so that works for her. But she asked, how do we remain upbeat? Because here's the thing, we can try to ignore, but our higher self is pushing. Our higher self wants us to bridge the gap between here and New Earth. Doesn't mean that we'll be on New Earth ready to go. We already said it's not like we're going to hit the ground running, but we are doing a lot of the work to bridge this gap. And a lot of us, we already said, a lot of us don't want to do this work consciously because it is a lot. But Elena has chosen to do some of this work consciously. At the same time, she doesn't want to deal with the consequences of doing this work consciously. And we don't mean that she's skirting her duties or she's being lazy about it or anything of the kind, obviously. They were laughing. They know how we think. So immediately we're like, oh, why is she not doing this fully or whatever, however way we judge that other people should be doing this work. And so it's funny that they were laughing already. She's doing everything perfectly the way that she needs to do it. What we mean to say is that because she does want to do some of this work consciously, she almost wants to, and I think the saying here is walk with 2 feet in one shoe. Anyway, something along those lines. And so she wants to be here in 3D while she's also doing some of this work consciously. And because of the situation, she's having a really hard time balancing things. Of course, this is very hard to do because again, once you see, you cannot unsee. Once your suspension of disbelief, as Kath put it, starts breaking down, it is hard to go back and say, no, but we're here. And until we leave, until I see any different, this is all there is. And we're simplifying, obviously, here. Elena is a very complex individual. I mean, we are masters. So we are just simplifying the terms of what's happening here. So now she's asked, how do I make my 3D reality be lighter? How can I just be more focused here all the time, even though I know all these other things and I can't really ignore them, even though I tell myself, oh, yeah. I just say, yeah, it's nice. It's interesting. It's great. But yeah, let's stay here with our feet on the ground. And again, we're laughing because I know we're all doing this. That's why I think it's very funny. We've all tried to do this. We've all tried to ground ourselves. Lorrayne, you were saying, yeah, I always keep a little piece of my mind, grounded, where I say, oh, this might not happen, or, stay open to the possibilities, which is absolutely wise if it helps you deal with the emotions of all of this. There is no wrong way of doing this. None of you can possibly do anything that's not done right. You're dealing with things exactly the way you're supposed to be dealing with things. And so she's asking this because the fact is that she's already done enough of the work. She's already allowed enough in to where it's really hard for her to ground. Here's one thing we will say about grounding. We said this many months ago. There's nothing to ground into anymore. So you can try grounding as much as you want, but there's nothing to ground into. There is nothing. Nothing is here anymore. Before, and obviously this has always been holographic, but before we could pretend that there was something here that we could ground into, something to hold us here. We were very much part of the game, even when we did on the side believe in ascension and whatnot. We still thought, this is me, I do real estate, I do science, I do healing, whatever I do, and I like to believe these little things on the side. Just like with religion. Religion has never changed anybody's behavior in real life, whatever they did. They might have told themselves, yeah, I'm doing this because, this is what Christ would do. But really, religion was always the segment that's just this little thing that you like to believe on the side. And then you go about your life the way that you always go about your life, to a greater or lesser degree. Some people might have been more into religion, or maybe it was more of a part of their life, or whatever they thought that they had to do because of what they were being told that they were supposed to do, and all of that. And it's fine. We're not going to go into these shades of gray. We're trying to paint a picture here. So the problem with what we're doing right now, especially for us who are hearing from the 25th, and we already said there's no difference between Clea getting this information, bringing in this information, and Elena hearing it. They have the same consciousness about it. It's the same awareness. Whether you incorporate it more or less into your daily life, it's the same thing. You've heard the same things. And so what happens? Now you're trying to ground into what? You know this is not real. All of us are playing this game because not only we are desperate to believe that this is still real, because we cannot be in this in-between state. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to handle it. We wouldn't be able to finish. We'd be desperate. But also there is a lot more beyond just not having the veil and realizing what's happened here. There is the fact, like we said, about the morning, about the fact that you actually realize and you're like, crap, this is gone. This is truly dead. This is done, which means all my friends and family are dead too, because that's how we think of things, right? I've lost all of them. I'm not going to see them again. It's a lot to take. You will hear these words and you will compartmentalize them yet again. But the fact is, we know. We already know. We just don't let ourselves know because we would break down. We would melt. So she's trying. The biggest lie we're telling ourselves, and again, we say lie, but we don't mean any negative connotation by it. The pretense, let's call it pretense. The biggest pretense we all have is that our friends are still here. So she says, how do I make myself believe so I can go back to what I knew before? How do I keep myself here? How do I pretend this is just a little make-believe story that I'm hearing about the 25th and still stay here? Problem is, this is not a little make-believe story. This has percolated, is imbuing our entire reality, because the fact is we chose to know. And once you know, you cannot unknow. You can pretend that this is just like what you're hearing from a channel that tells you that, I don't even know, about the Council of 12 or whatever that was. It's fine. There is no right and wrong. It's okay. If that's what it takes for you to maintain some semblance of balance here so you can handle what we are doing, that's okay. There is no judgment. We've all gone through this. We all do it in different ways. We are trying to cope while we're finishing up this project. But at the same time, when you connect, when you stop flailing and resisting, you connect and you know why you're doing this. So how do we stay lighter? They were laughing. What do you mean? What does it mean lighter? We'll tell you, Claire's been light, very light. Why? Because she's done a lot of work already. So she's put away a lot of the frustration, resentment, anger, etc. So at least she's not dealing with that on a daily basis anymore. And obviously, we're not going to tackle a lot more of what's going on, what's been going on behind the scenes from a graphic perspective, because she doesn't want to deal with that. And she can't deal with that now. So we'll leave that for New Earth. But you know that there are kids, there are people in the community that are saying they're having these dreams. So they have not postponed this work, and that's their choice. And again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. They can't. They feel like they can't handle it, so they're handling it. But for Clea, because she has done this work, she has finished a lot of the phases of the work that she felt ready to tackle. Now she's feeling the end, and she's preparing, but she's also very excited. She's feeling that we are excited about the completion, and all of a sudden, she's lightened up. But the only way that we have to lighten up is not going to be by resisting what we are saying and resisting this reality, because this is the only true reality. Everything else we're seeing, everything else we used to believe, we realize now that it was never true. It was all an illusion. So the lightening up doesn't mean that we now pretend and go backwards and say, yeah, but let me just put this aside. Can't put it aside anymore. It's in to stay. We already said, some of us might like to think, oh yeah, we're just believing this now because we're entertaining ourselves with this now. But I mean, in 10 years, if we're still here, I'm just going to believe something else. I'm going to believe that the aliens, are going to do this and that. It's fine. It's all the same. It isn't all the same. We'll say it again. We have wanted to know this for a reason. We're not going back. We're not going backwards anymore. And so basically, we're sorry that we don't have a magic formula for Elena. There is no magic formula to unsee, to unknow what she knows, what she's consciously aware of. The only way through is through. The only way to get over things is to go through them and to embrace and stop resisting it. Now, we don't mean this as instructions or judgment or advice. We're not telling you what to do. We already even said there is a purpose for resistance. We're putting up resistance because a lot of things we cannot handle, we don't want to handle. That's okay. So we're not saying this as this is what we should do or what needs to be done or anything of the kind. We're just saying, truly, at the end of the day, the only way for us to, the only time we'll see the light, if you want to speak of it in those terms, and we'll move forward and we'll lighten up, will be on new earth. When we basically have done all the work and we'll be like, okay, this is what it is. Right now, unfortunately, we're going through it. So luckily for Clea, now she's focusing on one piece of the puzzle where she's feeling the excitement that we're all feeling now in the background. And sometimes consciously about what we are doing and about things actually coming to completion in this project. But who knows? Clea might decide in 2 weeks that she's going to tackle something else that is not so pleasant. And there you go. Now she's not as light as she has been in these past few days. She's actually done really well. And of course, that's because she's not really focused on it. With the fact that her best friend's essence is gone, she's kind of glossed over it. And she's doing okay. But eventually it's going to hit. It's going to hit just like the fact that because we just say very lightly, oh yeah, my parents are gone. But it hasn't really hit, has it? Eventually, as we get closer and closer, we'll be like, wow, people truly are gone. There's nobody else left here. It's going to be hard for us to manage, to handle. And so Elena, Elena's made a choice and she's a big girl. They were laughing. She's a master, truly. And so there's really no going back. So we have no advice for her for how to lighten up. The only thing we will say is that we always say this, and it is always the only solution really to everything, is to go inside, connect, and you will know everything is happening the way you want it to happen. There is no other way. There is no other reality happening except for what you chose to see happen, how you chose to live through this. Like, for example, Mel was saying, I feel very anxious, and this doesn't happen very often. Why can't we just be happy? Why can't I feel good all the time if I am in charge? Unfortunately, we understand what Mel is saying. Mel is not saying that because she's a weakling or she can't handle things. She's gone through many, many very painful things in her life that she has overcome, like the master that she is. This is what we do, right? We set up reality in a certain way because we know we can take it. Of course we can. So Mel is not saying that because she can't handle it. Oh my goodness, I'm anxious. What am I going to do? Mel is saying this because we are exhausted. We do want to feel good. We do want to lighten up. We are ready. We are so beyond ready. The problem is that we're in the midst of that. We chose to stay behind, so we're still dealing with it. Otherwise, we'd be dealing with it on New Earth, but we are dealing with it. Of course, on New Earth, it's going to be easier because the vibration is going to be completely different. And we're going to have a completely different understanding available to us. So it's going to be a lot easier. Meanwhile, instead, we're still here. So we're trying to use our limitations because we want to keep these limitations in place and try to discern things that can only be discerned at the higher self level. So now with this work we're doing, we're trying to bridge the gap between our higher self's knowing and our conscious knowing. But at a conscious level, we're also trying to shield ourselves from the painful realizations that this conscious awareness brings. And so unfortunately, we don't have much advice to give you for the simple reason that it can be done. You have chosen. There's nothing that we can do. We can tell you how to do. You are in charge. You are making this happen. And you have chosen to become aware of certain things. And unfortunately, these things, because the veil is almost non-existent, unfortunately, these things are not always pretty. But we'll say one more time, if you do want to focus on something lighter, do focus on the fact, again, connect, you will feel it. Do focus on the fact that we are excited about what we are doing here at this particular time. This is giving Clea a break. This is giving Clea a source of happiness. Might not last very long, but for now she's coping with a lot of things in a more positive way because she feels that, yeah, things are coming to completion. And I did this session, just FYI, on the 15th of February, and I can tell you that by mid-March, I was already dealing with other stuff that wasn't as pleasant. So yeah, if you can tap into that excitement, it will definitely give you a little break, at least for a little while. Lorrayne, thank you. I think the thing that I struggle with the most, because I moved into a phase where I'm no longer looking at the past and no longer looking to the future to sustain me, I guess. So it's a nowness of things and the energetic frequency of the now. This is, as Clea says, boring. It's not really that I find it boring. It's just that I don't know how to plan for anything. You know, we're creative beings, always planning for something in the quote unquote future. And I don't do that anymore, which from the external can be perceived as depressed. And I'm not depressed. As you said, we are exhausted. I feel like every night I'm battling my demons, which I believe I am, or what I perceive to be my demons. So I wake up exhausted, which then makes the nowness even more challenging to wade through me. Yes, that's a very good synthesis, really, of what is happening and how you are going through this particular period and what you're dealing with. And you know very well, it's not just you. Many of us are perceiving it exactly or experiencing it exactly the same way as you are, whether continuously or on a one-off basis. And yes, it is very hard for us. We just want to comment on this one thing. It is very hard for us. We come into these games to do. We've actually alluded to this before. We've spoken about this before. Clea, for example, we talked about this when we said Clea is waiting to have time for herself, time to herself to actually think. She feels like here she has no time to think. She's always running. She's always doing things. We already said we do not come into these games to be. We come into these games to do. So when you say what you're describing is the fact that it's very hard to be here without doing, without planning. There was a post yesterday, a phrase in the Telegram group that resonated with some people and would have resonated with all of us when we were more in this reality that said, waiting means you're not creating. But of course, that's not correct because we are always creating. We're creating right now, except what are we not doing right now? Why do we consider it waiting? Because even now, what we consider this at 3D level saying, oh, we're waiting for a certain thing to happen, which is the recall. We already said the recall is just a signpost of what we're doing right now. But from a 3D perspective, it looks like we're not doing anything. And this is why it's so hard for us. We feel like we're just here hanging out while waiting for something on the outside to happen. You see, this is how we perceive it here. And we don't know what to do with ourselves like this because we've always been very proactive in creating our reality here. In fact, if anything, this should show us how we do create our reality here. If we had any more doubts left about the fact that we create our reality. Because the moment that our focus shifted to where we're like, okay, well, we're not going to focus on the future anymore. First of all, there is no future, but also we're not going to have any more experiences here. We're not staying here. All of a sudden, we're like, crap, what do I do now? Well, this is boring, which is exactly what you, and not only you, Clea, and not only Clea, but many people have experienced. This is all very boring. We're all detaching. There's really nothing to do. So now we're not entertained anymore. We find entertainment here and there. And once in a while, we hear some bad news. Because again, we think that's what reality looks like. So it's got to be true if we hear some fake bad news. We're laughing out somewhere. You know, this has happened, that's happened, this is going to happen. Somebody's still talking about the Epstein list or whatever it is, like it matters. It doesn't matter. We already said we don't want to know about all the misbehaviors, if you want to call them that, all the extremely negative behaviors we've seen here. The extremely dark behaviors we've seen here. We don't want to know about that. We don't want to hang these people. We've had enough. These people are not even here anymore. Who are we hanging? Who are we punishing? The actors that stepped in? So do you see, we are having a really tough time. So what you're experiencing is very much par for the course. What else would you be experiencing? You've detached yourself from the game, which means you're not running around anymore. So what are you going to do? You're just waiting, is what we think of as waiting. In reality, we're not waiting, we are doing. The work that you do at night, which of course makes you exhausted during the day, that's what we're doing. So really what we do during the day is we're just resting and we're laughing. And you're not here the full day either, you're gone. We're barely ever here anymore. But when you're here and you consider what you're doing, you're like, wow, this is boring. Yeah, because there's nothing exciting happening here anymore. What are you going to do? Everything you could possibly do is probably on the side of the dark or low vibration. What are you going to do? Go watch a movie? We try going to watch movies. You saw what happened when we watched Avatar, when people in the group watched Avatar, and it was not good. I felt nauseous, like I was angry. Somebody else felt sick. I mean, all kinds of stuff happened when we tried to go watch an actual movie. So it was interesting. Lorrayne, I'm making art because there's no negative attached to it. I can make art. It doesn't mean anything. It keeps me busy. It makes me happy because you're right. I'm not watching any movies. I'm not watching any of that stuff, the show going on. I'm really not interested in what is happening in the external reality. Me. Yes, and art is a good distraction. I hope you enjoyed this. As I mentioned, I really loved this answer from the 25th in response to Elena's question. So Elena, thank you again for asking that question. That was awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And thank you as always for watching. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.